Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital Today channel. Chase exposes Ezra as Jacinda's hidden client, Michael's story crumbles. Harrison Chase's investigation will expose Ezra Boyle as Jacinda Bracken's hidden client, so Michael Corinthos' alibi story may crumble. Chase intends to do whatever it takes to keep Willow Tate out of jail because he is absolutely certain that she is innocent. Because of this, Chase has arrived with a brand new strategy to pursue, which may assist in challenging Michael's justification. Chase wants to throw suspicion back in Michael's direction and can easily do that if he can prove Michael wasn't with Jacinda the entire night of Drew Cain's shooting. On November 20th, Chase will take some steps forward in his investigation. This is something Chase is doing on his own time and without any additional police resources, but he still feels confident he can make big things happen for Willow. It turns out Chase will have some updates for Alexis Davis in GH's November 21st episode. Chase will have some important news to share with Willow's lawyer, so it sounds like his investigation will prove successful in some way. Since Chase suspects Jacinda might have had another client besides Michael that night, he may be proven right. Could there be some security footage of Jacinda with Ezra or some other clue that they were together while Drew was getting shot? Ezra is well acquainted with Jacinda and may be hoping to keep his paid escort sessions a secret. Chase may blow that plan if he comes up with proof and ultimately gets Ezra to admit he was with Jacinda when she claimed to be with Michael. This is certainly something Alexis could use to her advantage when it comes to defending Willow and pointing the finger at other suspects. You can bet Drew will be pleased too if Chase's investigation causes Michael to lose his grip on his bogus Jacinda story. Jacinda's encounter, Rocco's trial, Britt vs. Emma. Michael Corinthos to introduce Jacinda Breckel to Sonny Corinthos. Rocco Falconeri's loved one's battle to clear the teenager's name. Plus, Britt Westbourne angrily confronts Emma Scorpio Drake. Keep reading and let's talk about what is coming up in the ABC soap opera. Jacinda Breckel's meeting. Let's start off with Jacinda. In Port Charles, the blonde is getting to know a lot of people. Even though Michael has been warned this isn't a great idea, he is continuing to fake his romance with Jacinda. It looks like they might fall for each other, despite the fact that it's just a show to prove their alliance. Michael previously introduced Jacinda to Molly Lansing Davis and Christina Corinthos Davis. Let's just say it was a tad awkward. So, when Sonny meets Jacinda, how will he react? Rocco Falconeri's trial. Over with Rocco. He went to court and everyone expected him to be handed a misdemeanor or nothing at all. However, it seems that someone is setting the teenager up for a big fall. Now the young man has to face trial and could go to prison. Dante Falconeri loses his temper. Elsewhere, Lulu Spencer updates Carly Spencer about what's happened with Rocco. There is also Giovanni Gio Palmieri, who is consumed with guilt over Rocco's arrest. The young man ends up confessing to Brooklyn Quartermain. Britt Westbourne's demand. General Hospital spoilers for the week of November 17th reveal that Britt has a fierce confrontation with Emma. The young lady tries to leave but Britt grabs her. Britt refuses to let Emma go until they clarify a few things, despite Emma's yells. Britt's update will enrage Jen Sidwell. Then, Britt gives someone an ultimatum. Later in the week, Britt is rattled. By Friday, expect the doctor to get interrogated by Jason Morgan. The future of Laura Collins in politics fans can also expect Laura Collins to get the election results. The very next day, she is stunned. What else to expect? Trina Robinson thinks about confessing. Meanwhile, Vaughn meets with Jocelyn Jacks. Elsewhere, Jack Brennan grills Carly. Harrison Chase provides an update to Alexis Davis. The attorney will also have a chat with Felicia Scorpio. This could be very bad news for a pregnant Portia Robinson, so stay tuned. Willow had never meant to overhear anything that night, but fate seemed determined to drag her deeper into the mess Michael had created, even as she fought desperately to believe her husband still had some shred of honesty left in him. She stood frozen in the hallway outside the Metro Court suite, her hand hovering over the door she'd been about to knock on, when the muffled sound of Jacinda Bracken's sharp whisper cut through the air and stopped her cold. Willow's breath caught as she leaned barely an inch closer, enough to hear Jacinda insist that she couldn't keep doing this and that the pressure was becoming unbearable. Michael's responding voice, low, tense, unmistakably frantic, sent a surge of dread through Willow's chest. She heard him warn Jacinda that changing her story now would destroy everything, including Willow's future, and there was a moment of silence so weighted that Willow felt it like a physical blow. She didn't move, barely breathed, her pulse thundering in her ears as Jacinda finally muttered that she wasn't sure how much longer she could cover for him. That one sentence cracked something inside Willow, and her hand trembled so violently she pulled it against her chest to keep from giving herself away. Whatever they were hiding, whatever secret Jacinda had been dragged into, Michael was far more tangled in it than he'd ever admitted, and Willow knew instantly that she wasn't the only one chasing the truth. Across town, Harrison Chase was deep into an off-the-books investigation that had already taken more twists than anyone had anticipated, but Chase remained unwavering. He believed in Willow. He believed in her goodness, her honesty, her deep-rooted instinct to help others, and because of that, he refused to let her take the fall for a crime he knew she hadn't committed. Even without departmental resources, without formal backup, without so much as a nod of approval from his superiors, Chase worked tirelessly to dismantle the flimsy alibi Michael had offered and the dangerously shaky story Jacinda had backed up. And now, at last, he was closing in on the truth. His newest lead had taken him to an unexpected but unmistakably damning conclusion. Jacinda wasn't with Michael the entire night of Drew Kane's shooting. She had another client, one she had gone to great lengths to keep hidden, and that client was Ezra Boyle. Chase hadn't wanted to believe it at first, not because he cared about Ezra personally, but because revealing a hidden client meant opening a door to motives and timelines that no one had properly considered until now. But the pieces clicked together with startling clarity the deeper he dug. Ezra had been nervous when Chase casually mentioned Jacinda's name. He'd fumbled his glass at the Port Charles Grill, tripped over his own explanation about where he'd been the night Drew was attacked, and repeatedly insisted he had nothing to hide, despite Chase never suggesting he did. Those reactions alone were enough to raise flags for a seasoned detective, but the breakthrough came when Chase managed to access security footage from a private building near the waterfront. The timestamp aligned perfectly with the window of opportunity for Drew's shooter, and there Jacinda was, stepping out of a rideshare car, alone, and entering Ezra's complex. She stayed for over an hour, long past the time she had sworn under oath she spent with Michael. The evidence wasn't just suspicious, it threatened to obliterate Michael's alibi entirely. By the time Chase printed still frames from the footage and compared them with witness reports, he knew he had enough to take to Alexis Davis. Willow's attorney had been fighting uphill since the beginning, battling the narrative Michael and Jacinda had crafted so carefully, but Chase's findings offered her the first real leverage she'd had in weeks. And if Jacinda had been with Ezra during the shooting, then Michael could no longer hide behind her. His story would crumble, and the truth, whatever it turned out to be, would finally have room to rise to the surface. Chase could already imagine the look on Alexis' face when he handed her the photographs, the relief mixed with fierce determination as she realized they could now suggest that someone else had both the motive and opportunity to shoot Drew. Ezra Boyle had always tried to maintain a polished, untouched exterior in Port Charles society, but he wasn't as spotless as he pretended. His long-standing, carefully concealed arrangement with Jacinda was something he never intended to become public, not only because of the scandal but because it would tie him to a night he had taken great pains to obscure. Jacinda, for her part, had been paid handsomely for her silence. Chase was certain of that. And while she may have initially thought the lie harmless, just a simple favor to a wealthy client, things had spiraled into territory she never intended: perjury, legal consequences, and the weight of knowing she was helping to frame an innocent woman. Chase didn't blame her entirely, but he needed answers, and he intended to get them. In his mind, confronting Ezra was the next logical step. If he cornered Ezra with the evidence, footage, timelines, inconsistencies, there was a good chance the man's carefully constructed composure would crack. And once it cracked, the truth would spill out whether Ezra wanted it to or not. Chase could already see the possibility unfolding: Ezra admitting he was with Jacinda when she claimed to be with Michael, Jacinda confirming the arrangement out of sheer exhaustion and fear, Michael's alibi dissolving into dust, and Willow finally seeing a clear path out of the nightmare she'd been trapped in since Drew's shooting. And while Chase fought to uncover the truth on one side of town, Willow's world was rapidly tilting on the other. She remained rooted to the spot outside the door, listening as Michael desperately begged Jacinda to hold it together for just a little longer. Jacinda's voice shook with the strain of lies that had spiraled beyond her control. Willow pressed a hand to her mouth, feeling tears sting her eyes, but she didn't make a sound. Every word she heard confirmed her greatest fear: Michael wasn't protecting her. He was protecting himself. And perhaps protecting something even bigger, something darker. She backed away slowly, her heart pounding, her mind racing with the implications of what she'd just heard. She didn't know yet that Chase was about to meet with Alexis. She didn't know he was on the verge of exposing Ezra as Jacinda's secret client, or that he was only hours away from blowing open a lie that had kept her trapped in uncertainty. But somewhere deep inside her, beneath the fear, the betrayal, the ache of realizing Michael had been deceiving her, hope flickered. A quiet, trembling hope that the truth was finally clawing its way to the surface. And when Chase walked into Alexis' office the next day, holding a folder thick with evidence that could dismantle Michael's story once and for all, that small flicker ignited into something stronger. Chase explained everything: Ezra's nervousness, the timeline gaps, the security footage, Jacinda's obvious discomfort. Alexis listened intently, her expression sharpening with every detail. By the time Chase laid the photographs on her desk, Alexis already knew they had something powerful. Something usable. Something that could save Willow. And across town, Drew Kane would soon learn that Michael's carefully crafted story, the one he'd clung to so tightly, was unraveling faster than anyone expected. Because once Chase publicly connected Ezra Boyle to Jacinda Bracken on the night of the shooting, everything Michael insisted was true would collapse under the weight of real evidence. And the fallout? That was coming too. But for Willow, for the first time in weeks, the future stopped feeling like a prison sentence and started feeling like a door cracking open. And on the other side of that door was the thing she had been desperate for all along: the truth. Willow sat in her car long after she'd fled from the Metro Court hallway, staring through the windshield at nothing as her pulse continued to pulse erratically. The city lights blurred through the beginning of her tears, but she blinked them back resolutely. She refused to break, not now, not when everything she thought she knew about her husband had just been yanked out from under her. She replayed Jacinda's trembling confession-like words over and over: "I don't know how much longer I can cover for you." It rattled around in Willow's mind like a loose screw she could not tighten. Her hands rested on the steering wheel, cold and unsteady, her knuckles pale in the dim glow of the dashboard. She wanted to confront Michael immediately, demand answers, drag the truth out of him whether he wanted to give it or not. But a deeper instinct, a cautious, gut-level instinct, held her back. Something told her that walking into that sweet and demanding honesty would only prompt Michael to weave more lies, to hide behind half-truths and emotional manipulation, to twist his version of events into shapes that conveniently left Willow in the dark. And Willow was done living in the dark. She took a slow breath, then another, grounding herself in the decision she knew she had to make next. If Chase was working on something, and she suspected he was, then she needed to trust him. Chase had always shown her respect, integrity, and fairness. He might have been her past in some ways, but he'd never lied to her the way Michael was lying now. She picked up her phone, thumb hovering over Chase's contact, but she couldn't bring herself to hit send. Not yet. She didn't want to tip her hand prematurely, not until she heard exactly what he'd uncovered and whether it connected to the conversation she had just overheard. Meanwhile, across town, Chase left Alexis' office with the sense of momentum he had been craving. It wasn't a victory, not yet. But it was the first real step toward clearing Willow's name, and he felt it in his bones. The still photographs from the surveillance footage were tucked securely back into his folder as he headed down the corridor, his shoes striking the polished floor in a brisk rhythm that matched the energy simmering through him. He had done this right. He had gathered his evidence carefully, approached Alexis with facts, not assumptions, and now they had a real avenue to pursue in court. If Ezra Boyle had lied, and Chase was certain he had, then the next phase of the investigation would be about tightening the screws until Ezra had no choice but to tell the truth. Chase paused at the elevator, fingers tapping the folder lightly. Ezra could play innocent all he wanted, but Chase had seen guilt 1,000 times, in 1,000 faces. Ezra had it written all over him, the evasive answers, the fidgeting hands, the sudden fascination with anything except Chase's eyes whenever Jacinda's name came up. Chase suspected Ezra thought he had covered his tracks by meeting Jacinda in a private residence rather than in a public venue, but cameras existed everywhere, private buildings included, and Ezra hadn't considered that a delivery driver with a chest-mounted camera had passed Jacinda in the lobby. Sometimes, the smallest oversight brought down the biggest facade. Now Chase needed to confront Ezra directly. He had debated doing it immediately, but instinct told him to wait just a little longer, to gather one more piece that would force Ezra into a confession. He contemplated returning to the waterfront building to see if he could get confirmation of Ezra's comings and goings, but his phone buzzed before he could decide. It was a message from Brooke Lynn, "Call me when you can. We need to talk. It's important." Chase frowned slightly. Brooke Lynn rarely texted him like that without context, but he trusted her enough to know it wasn't something trivial. Before he returned her message, he stepped outside into the brisk November air and let his thoughts settle. The deeper he dug into the night of Drew's shooting, the more he realized the case hinged on a series of precise timelines that Michael had manipulated with unnerving confidence. Michael Corinthos was many things: devoted father, strategic thinker, and sometimes, a man capable of dangerous rationalizations. But Chase had underestimated just how far Michael would go to protect himself and the family legacy he clung to so tightly. If Ezra admitted he'd been with Jacinda, Michael's alibi would collapse. And when Michael's alibi collapsed, everything else could fall with it, including Willow's trust. Brooke Lynn's text wasn't something Chase wanted to ignore, so he stepped aside and dialed her number. She answered almost immediately. "Chase? Thank God. I wasn't sure you'd pick up." "Is everything okay?" he asked, instantly alert. "It's Willow," Brooke Lynn said softly. She looked shaken earlier. She came through the Quartermain gatehouse like she'd seen a ghost. Chase straightened. "Did she say anything?" "No. That's what worries me. She was pale and quiet and wouldn't look me in the eye. I asked if she was okay, and she just said she needed some time alone." "Chase, something's wrong. Really wrong." His chest tightened, and he felt a deep protective heat rise in him. "I'll talk to her," he said. "Thanks for letting me know." After hanging up, Chase stood in silence for a long moment. Whatever Willow had overheard, whatever she had seen, it had rattled her deeply. And that meant time was running out. He needed the truth before Willow confronted Michael alone, before she got hurt emotionally, or worse, dragged deeper into his lies. Chase turned toward his car, determination hardening his expression. He was going to Ezra now. No more waiting. At the Boyle residence, a sleek modern penthouse overlooking the city, Ezra opened the door with a polite smile that instantly faltered the moment he saw Chase standing there. He tried to recover, but the twitch at the corner of his mouth betrayed him. "Detective Chase," Ezra said slowly. "I wasn't expecting." "We need to talk," Chase said, stepping inside before Ezra could protest. "Now." Ezra swallowed hard, closing the door behind them with a nervous clack. Chase wasted no time. He laid the photographs on the marble kitchen island, the stark images of Jacinda entering Ezra's building glowing under the overhead lights. Ezra's face drained of color. "Care to explain this?" Chase asked. Ezra's throat bobbed as he stared at the photos. I don't know what you think this proves." "It proves Jacinda wasn't with Michael Corinthos the night of Drew Kane's shooting," Chase replied. "It proves you lied. And if you continue lying, I will have no problem charging you with obstruction, accessory after the fact, and anything else the DA sees fit." Ezra's hands trembled slightly as he leaned against the counter. "You don't understand." "Then help me," Chase said. "Because right now, the only thing I understand is that you're hiding something." Ezra hesitated, a long, tense hesitation that felt like a lifetime squeezed into a few seconds, before finally collapsing onto a bar stool, rubbing both hands over his face. Jacinda wasn't supposed to get dragged into this, Ezra muttered. Neither was I. Then why did you lie? Chase pressed. Because Michael asked her to cover for him, Ezra said quietly. And she panicked. She didn't want anyone to know about our arrangement. Chase's stomach dropped. Did Michael know she was with you? No, Ezra said. That's the whole problem. Jacinda told him she'd cover his timeline, but she didn't realize it would turn into a criminal case. She thought Drew was going to be fine. She thought it would blow over before anyone asked real questions. And when it didn't, Chase said slowly, she doubled down. Ezra nodded miserably. She thought she was helping. But Michael started pushing her. Pressuring her. Telling her she had to stick to the story or Willow would go to prison. Chase felt a chill coil through him. So Willow had been the pawn all along. He left Ezra after securing a recorded statement.